Hello and welcome, and really excited about offering this opportunity not only for student athletes but families as a whole. We get really bogged down with our discussions, and we talk NCAA and we talk JUCO, and an area that I think needs to be discussed in greater detail and greater frequency is NAIA athletics. And so I thought it would be a great idea to have one of the country's preeminent college NAIA head coaches at the University of the Cumberlands, Brad Shelton, talk with us a little bit about, so we can learn not only about University of the Cumberlands baseball, but we can learn a little bit about NAIA athletics. And I really want to thank you, Coach. I know we're in season, but I really am happy that you take the time to join me today.
I really appreciate you having me, Walter. I love talking baseball and love talking about the NAIA, probably the best kept secret in college baseball, I think. So happy to be here.
Well, and that's kind of my point, and you and I have talked about that a little on air. I think it's really, truly one road that is not explored to the degree that it should be for families when they start out with regard to recruiting. So if we could start here, talk a little bit about, first the NAIA and then University of the Cumberlands from an affordability and academic perspective that parents may not really be tuned into.
Right. The NAIA has been around for a long time, about as long as the NCAA, I believe. There's a wide variety of types of schools in NAIA, from church-related, small private Christian schools to large state schools in the South. For whatever reason they choose to join NAIA, it's not necessarily linked to enrollment numbers as much as it is the focus for them in terms of academics and athletics. Our scholarship situation is very similar to NCAA Division I in most sports. For instance, in baseball, it's 11.7 in Division I. I know that's all changing, but we have 12 scholarships. A lot of schools were able to stack money, academic money, leadership grants with baseball money. So the scholarship situation is as good or better than most NCAA situations. So I think as kids are looking for a university to attend, they need to not look at labels in terms of Division I, Division II, III, or NAIA, but try to find the best fit for them athletically, socially, spiritually, and athletically. And I think for us at the University of Cumberland, I think we really fit the bill for kids that are looking for a quality education and to be able to graduate with a quality degree without leaving them in a lot of student debt. I think that's a big discussion in this day and age. Is student loans is really worth going into massive debt? And what our university has done over the past 10 years is reduced our costs. We've increased a scholarship program. It's called Cumberland's Commitment. Our tuition is $9,800 roughly a year. Room and board's about $10,000. So you can go to school here, $20,000 a year. But with the Cumberland's Commitment Scholarship, which is an endowed scholarship, no one spends more than $4,000 a year. So they can get a degree from our university in 4 years, spending about $16,000. And that includes books. We have free books here. Our affordability and the quality of education and all the things that we're able to offer on our beautiful campus here really, I think, make us appealing to a lot of kids. So I think it's important that more people across the country know about what we have to offer, as well as the NAIA. A lot of really good situations, little hidden gems around the country at the NAIA level.
One of the things I want to share with parents is, Coach Shelton going into his 30th year as a head coach at the college level, 24 of which with the University of the Cumberlands. And we're talking about, and I encourage when I'm talking with families, if you go and watch, whether it's University of Cumberlands versus Bethel, Johnson University, any of those schools, not only within your conference, but in and out of conference, it's an elite level and extremely comparable to Division I athletics. Now, when I say that, parents, their head snaps back. Can you talk about the advantages of being a NAIA student with regard to, your academics, your athletics, but it's going to give you an opportunity the same way a high-ranking JUCO or a high-ranking Division I school is, as far as exposure for those athletes that are interested in playing professionally.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you mentioned Johnson. They've beaten us twice this year. Coach Ronald's done a great job. My son has been fortunate enough to be on his staff down there. What they've done just in a couple of years, building that program to national. This week they'll be in the top 25 easily in our national poll. So the competitiveness in NAIA is just getting tougher and tougher every year, and I think that's because of what's happening in the NCAA and the uncertainties with roster caps and the portal and NIL and all that stuff. I think the talent at the NIL level has just gotten better and better. For us, just last week, we had six scouts in the stands with their video cameras and radar guns videoing our catcher, who's a prospect, and our left-handed pitcher, who the entire game for 98 pitches was 92 to 95 on the gun, a left-handed pitcher. So, I mean, there are two players right there that could play at any level, playing in Williamsburg, Kentucky on a Friday night Mid-South Conference game. So, and you can look at NAIA schools all over the country and they have players just like what I'm talking about. So the competition level is very good at the NAIA.
So one of the things that I had an interesting dialogue the last time you and I talked over the summer, I had a parent reach out to me, and they took a visit to the University of Cumberlands, and they were blown away at the beauty of the campus, and they really felt it fit their prospective student, high school student. Can you talk a little bit about not only University of Cumberland's campus, but all the campuses? I mean, they really offer a wonderful student environment, for your 4 or 5 year academic college career. Can you talk a little bit about that? You've been there now for 24 years. Talk a little bit about what you think about the campus at University of Cumberlands.
Well, it's a beautiful campus for sure. Nestled in the mountains here. We're kind of right between Knoxville, Tennessee, and Lexington, Kentucky, in a small town, Williamsburg. We've got Lake Cumberland, Laurel Lake. We've got a lot of outdoor possibilities. The Daniel Boone National Forest. So it's just a very beautiful area. For us, I think a lot of kids get to our campus, and like you said, they're blown away at just how well kept the buildings are. They all are, beautiful brick buildings that match the landscaping, all those things. Like if you looked at a magazine 30 years ago of what a southern college campus should look like, that's kind of what we are, and I think there are those little hidden gems all over the country, small schools, NAIA schools that are a lot like us. So I think it's great that kids kind of expand their options and take a look at places like University of Cumberlands or Johnson University or Tennessee Wesleyan. There are a lot of really beautiful campuses that have a small town, like a family atmosphere where you're not just a number, you're not just one of 500 students sitting in a big lecture hall. It's just it's a perfect fit for a lot of kids that want to be more in a family type environment.
Now, you had alluded to your two student athletes, the left-handed pitcher, but particularly your catcher. Can you talk a little bit about the record that he's chasing, or one that he's already obtained and the other one that he's chasing? And it speaks to the caliber of student athletes that are now at the NAIA level, not only at the University of the Cumberlands, but within the NAIA, there's a lot of elite athletes. But talk a little bit about those two particular young men, particularly the catcher.
Sure. Charlie Muniz is the catcher. He's a senior. He's from Puerto Rico. Just an awesome player, but an even better person. One of the more popular kids on our campus with the faculty and staff. He's going to graduate with a double major. Just a tremendous hitter and a lot of power. He broke the NAIA record for career home runs down in Florida at Warren University last week. He hit his 89th, I believe, was 88 tied at 89, broke it, I think. But 100 is the college baseball record that we've been able to find. That was Division I, Oklahoma State, Pete Incaviglia in the 80s, I believe. So we've not been able to find Division II or Division III records, but we feel like that 100 would be the college record. So he's closing in on that. Just a tremendous hitter, a lot of power. we've been blessed. We had a donor donate TrackMan, and that's really helped us to have that stadium unit with the scouts, because they just don't know about the size of stadiums that we play in, those kind of things. But these are verified numbers, and he had 3 home runs in a game last week. All 3 were over 400 feet, so they're going to be out of pretty much any ballpark. One was 471. Like, this guy has major league power. He's just a super talented young man, and we're blessed that he's been able to be here for 4 years and get his degree. And he's made a lot of great friends, and that's the thing I think that we forget about. These are the good old days for all these kids, and to see that they're making lifelong friends and relationships here in our program and our university, that's really the thing that I think gets overlooked sometimes. The left-handed pitcher, Kalen Hampson, he's from Australia. We signed him from Three Rivers Community College. Outfielder, kind of two-way guy out of high school, became a full-time pitcher at junior college, and he just keeps getting better and better, works really hard, and that velocity has taken a huge jump. Hit 95 several times last week, Friday in his start against Georgetown. So those 2 guys are pro prospects, but our roster is just littered with a lot of junior college transfers, Division I transfers, just really good athletes, physical. If you came to watch us on a Friday night and then you drove 2 hours in either direction to see a mid-major Division I team play on the same day, you would not be able to say which team was Division I and which team was NAIA. Now, I think the big difference is when you start looking at, the SEC, ACC type teams like that. That's not what we are, but I think we could be very competitive with a lot of mid majors in terms of our talent level. We just don't have 3 guys like Charlie Muniz on our roster, right? We don't have 3 Kalen Hampsons, but I think that helps build a better team in terms of, if Kalen has a bad outing or if Charlie strikes out 3 times, they're going to be in the lineup the next time, right? Like, we don't bury those guys. We allow them to fail forward, I guess, to learn from and to develop as a player, because I think a lot of these big schools, you give up 4 earned runs in an inning, you may not throw for 2 weeks, and I think we are not as deep as some of those teams. I think that's the biggest difference, but that helps us to help players develop and get better. And it helps us be better at the end of the year, because they've already been knocked around a little bit. They've had some struggles, and they've been able to come through those. So that's what I really like about this level. The pressure, I want to win. We want to win here. But if we lose a game, they're not going to fire me, right? Like, we're going to learn through those losses, and we can develop relationships with our players. It doesn't have to be so transactional, and we don't have to. I think a lot of coaches at higher levels are afraid to get close to their players because they may have to cut them, and they don't want that connection, and we don't have that pressure as much.
And I was really wanting to pull out, and I'm so glad that you talked about where they were from. One look at your roster. New Mexico State, Australia, Puerto Rico. Obviously, we have Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida. But I would love for you to talk about, we hear about these, from a recruiting perspective. We're talking Division I, and we talked, academic showcases and things like that. How are you and your staff recruiting, not only the junior college guys, but the high school athletes as well? How do you kind of come in contact with them from all across the country?
Right. Well, after 30 years, I developed a little bit of a network with a lot of coaches. We have former players and coaches here that are coaching all over the country at different levels. So they're always recommending guys. But Jared Martin is our associate head coach, and he has really taken, my old-fashioned Rolodex and got that stuff into his phone, and has really taken the contacts that I had. He's just expanded his recruiting base around the world, really, and he's built relationships with a lot of these coaches, just on the phone, contacting them weekly, just finding out about players in different leagues at the junior college level, going to those Florida showcases early. I think those junior college showcases really helped him get to know a lot of coaches down there, and he's developed relationships with a lot of California guys, and I think that's really helped start the snowball effect of things, just getting better and better with our recruiting. But ultimately, your best recruiters are your players. And if you look at our roster, we have a lot of guys who came here because they knew someone who played here and had a good experience. So, and then, you throw in the development part and what we've been able to do. Coach Dools, our pitching coach, he's done a lot with data and metrics and with our Rapsodo and TrackMan, all those things. Before him, it was Willie Poe, who's a recruiting coordinator at Reinhardt now. So we've just had really a lot of good coaches that have helped keep this thing rolling. And I think when they see good players are coming here, but good players are getting better, I think that really helps.
Do you have camps? Are you offering camps throughout whether it's the summer and the fall, where prospective high school student athletes or families can get an opportunity to not only participate in the camp, but to visit and see the campus?
Yeah, we typically had an unsigned showcase every fall and summer. We did not have it the last 2 years because we were at Lewiston, and things just kind of shortened your summer, and then the summer before that we were redoing our field. So it's actually this will be the third year we haven't had it, but we try to do an informational camp where we do like a pro style workout, but I spend an hour with the parents just talking about the process and what our needs are and how we go about finding players. And but Walter, part of that speech I used to talk about, if you really want to play college baseball and you play on a high school team, there's probably a place for you. I think that's gotten a lot harder now.
A lot harder,
and so you've got to really expand your territory and where you're willing to go if you're hungry to play college baseball. And so I think, as we move forward, if we get back into those camps and informational meetings, I think I'll have to adjust that speech a little bit. Like, you're not just going to be able to go to the local community college just because you live there and they have baseball, because even those schools are getting guys from the portal and, older players. So you have to be willing to find the right fit.
Well, I can tell you that I live in the area that's really predominantly NCAA Division III, and it used to be very much like you just alluded to. If you really had a desire to play, you were going to find, ultimately the lower level Division III that's hungry for athletes. But those days are, rapidly coming to an end because all of the Division III programs throughout the Northeast are overloaded to the gills and considering JV programs. One of the dynamics that a lot of parents within the Northeast Mid-Atlantic, they don't have a lot of familiarity with NAIA. And so this is something that I think not only such as, yourself and maybe Victor at Ottawa or Timmy at Ottawa or Dave Serrano at Johnson, bringing in awareness in sheets. Jeremy does a good job with regard to Georgia Gwinnett, bringing in awareness to NAIA, the affordability from, right out of the gate, but also, the life balance. It's just not all baseball 24/7. There's a balance. You got faith, you got family, you got friends, you got academics, you got community and things of that nature, which obviously I think you exemplify. I think, your program for well over the last, I think almost your second or third year, you went from one of the bottom feeders to one of the top penthouse teams, not only within your conference, but within NAIA baseball. And I think these are the types of moments that parents can kind of say, hey, well, Coach Shelton, that's a guy I'd love for my student athlete to play for. How do you like to be contacted by prospective student athletes, whether they be JUCO or high school athletes?
I like to hear from the player directly. If they send me, if a kid sends me an email and it's not a mass email, it's not from a recruiting service, but it's just from him, then I'll respond. And honestly, a lot of the high school kids, I'm saying, hey, look, like right now, we're not sure we're going to sign a lot of high school kids, but keep sending me video. If you decide to go to a community college and play, let's stay in touch. Like, I don't want to burn the bridge, but I try to shoot them straight, with what we're graduating, what we're losing. But now if a parent emails me, my son really loves your school. Well, does he really love my school? If mom's sending me email, so these kids, part of our job is try to help them grow up and, they're old enough to fight in a war, get married, have a job, the least they can do is look a coach in the eye and say, hey, I want to be a part of your program, or send them an email. I want to be a part of your program, and not have the parents pushing them, and the parents are important in the process. I'm not, I want to have conversations with them if they visit. There are no bad questions from a parent. But I really like a student athlete that speaks for himself, because when we have those hard meetings and those tough practices, they're going to be the ones that have to answer for themselves or ask questions. Mom and dad aren't going to be there. So I think that's part of our job, is to help prepare them to do that. So in terms of recruiting, I get probably 100 plus emails a week from recruiting services. And I'm sure a lot of those kids are good players, but it's just nearly impossible to go through all of them and to respond to all of them with what we've got going on. So really like just that simple email with a quick video. Let us take a look at it. But we're looking for size, certain metrics, and then we'll start doing some homework on what type of person they are, what kind of student they are.
Talk about the metrics, Brad, because parents athletes are not being told enough the reality of the metrics. You alluded to your left-handed pitcher. You're talking about your catcher, dropping some tanks at 400 plus, but the metrics, are really important. And enough of these athletes now, even at the younger ages, they know their spin rates, they know their exit velocity. But talk a little bit about your metrics within not only at University of Cumberlands, but the NAIA and your conference in particular.
Right. Well, I feel like I can be hypocritical sometimes when I talk about this stuff. We actually used to have a sign in our batting cage. We have hit tracks in the batting cage, and it said EV and/or V do not equal to PT. And so, but at the same time, those are indicators of potential. So, if a guy can really pitch and he's not 91, then we're still going to consider him, So it's not like we have these cutoffs, but typically a left-hander that's 84 to 86 we're going to look at him, right? If a right-hander is 88 plus, we're going to look at him. But if he's 87, he's got a plus changeup, those guys can win at our level. We have a guy that throws 94 on our roster right now, and he's still learning how to pitch. But then we've got another kid who is a freshman who's 83 to 86 that, man, that dude, like that changeup, where it plays, like he's going to have a chance to help us at some point. So there aren't, hard and fast rules. You got to throw this, or you have to hit the ball this far. But like those things help. If I get an email from a kid that says, "Hey, coach, I topped out at 93 at the PBR showcase," well, I'm going to look at his video, But it's just they're important. It helps us kind of sift through all of the information that we get. If a kid, sends a video and he runs a 6'4", 60 at a showcase, like I'm gonna look into that kid. If he runs a 7'8", I'm probably not.
Right.
But we also like to look at potential and projectability, like those long, wiry kids that have a chance at their best baseball still ahead of them. We're gonna watch those videos. We're gonna do our homework, find out about what kind of teammate they are, if they're coachable, like those kind of things. That's the thing I love about Kalen, our lefty. He was an outfielder. He's just now learning how to pitch, and he's lighting up that radar gun, but he's only going to get better. So kids like that are interesting to us,
And that, before we wrap up, just want parents to understand, your high school, you're still in maximum growth mode. And when you get to college, your body begins to fill out. You begin to have more of a focus, a coaching focus, particularly with regard to pitching coaches, hitting coaches, strength coaches, and you begin to develop not only physically but mentally within the sport of baseball. And I really encourage parents to have an understanding. Metrics are great, but they're part of the process. They are not the entirety of the process. And so you always want to be working towards becoming better, obviously 1% every day. Well, Brad, I really want to say thank you for taking the time. I know we're in mid-season here. I'm going to have all of the contact information, not only for Coach Shelton, but everything to do with the University of the Cumberlands. We'll have their contact information for all their coaches, as well as if you have a profile in the baseball board, go ahead and download that and go ahead and find the schedule for the University of the Cumberlands and check out a game. I promise you, you will be absolutely blown away at not only the caliber and the quality of the talent, but the community within the campus at the school. But Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today, and best of luck.
Thank you, Walter. All of our games are free online, and kids can go back and watch on demand and watch previous games that have been played on our website. Our broadcast team does a great job. So yeah, check our team out.
I watch a lot of the games online, and I can attest to the fact that it's really well broadcasted, and I really enjoy watching the games. And Brad, best of luck the rest of the way.
Thanks for having me, Walter.
You're very welcome.